Started, everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Craig Maxwell. I'm one of the co-chairs here of the Southern Piedmont Chapter of the North Carolina Native Plant Society, along with Laura Domingo, who's back there, who will be joining as well. Today we have a presentation on the wild ones, which is a new chapter that we'll be talking about that Linda Nelson will be presenting for us today. So we are the North Carolina Native Plant Society. Our mission is to promote the enjoyment and conservation of North Carolina's native plants through propagation, advocacy, education, and protection. And we provide scholarships to university students. We do hikes throughout the year. We have educational chapter meetings such as this one, and we put out newsletters throughout the year.
I ended up joining. They had a student membership, so it was a small investment for me, and just was really impressed with all the materials they had. Even without joining, there was a lot of materials available to the public because that's what their goal is, right? Get people involved. So, and then I started looking at chapters because I wanted to join a chapter, and there was not one here. The closest one was Asheville, which really meant in Cullowhee. Everybody knows what Cullowhee is, where the Native Plant Conference is. And so there's a lot of there was a lot of interest there. And so I decided to start the one here because I had done that with a professional organization in the past, actually twice. So I had the experience to kind of know what I was getting into. And by the time I signed up, 2 others. So now there's one in the greater Raleigh area, and there's one up near Winston-Salem. So there's 4 chapters, and I'll talk more about that as we go through. But anyway, that's how I got started with it. And one of the first things I did in starting this chapter was reaching out to Laura, to Donna Bowles at the National Wildlife Federation chapter, to the Hawk. And so I've started reaching out to people to let them know why another organization like this was coming. And so what I want to do today is really, well, first, I'm really honored that I was asked to be here. Thank you so much, because I really think that we're stronger together and that there's plenty for all of us to do and help and really build this momentum of native plants and gardening for wildlife. As that, I love what the National Wildlife Federation has on their website about gardening for wildlife. And to me, sometimes that's more acceptable to people rather than saying you need native plants. Well, let's garden for wildlife, So anyway, I'm rambling. But so what I want to do today is explain what Wild Ones is and what we're doing, what they do at the national level and what they do in the local chapter. And I have I can talk more about what our chapter is doing and some handouts and things. So let's get started. So the byline of Wild Ones is native plants, natural landscapes. And I love that tagline too, because that really says what the organization is. And it is a 501c3 and with the really mission of advancing education on this. So here's the chapters, and guess where it started? In the Midwest. It started in Wisconsin, and we'll talk more about that, but there are 76 chapters. There's 26 seedlings. Now, that's what a chapter is. When someone signs up to start a chapter, they're first called a seedling. And there's certain gates that the seedling has to go through to become a chartered chapter. We did that by our first meeting November 5th. So we are a fully chartered chapter now. And then there's in 29 states, so it is spreading out. And you see how many members, over 8,000 members. And that was at the end of December. So it is a large organization and has a lot of support for local chapters in what we can do. So this is what started them is in 1977. These people went to a talk at the Audubon Center, and they were just blown away. It was about native gardening, natural landscapes. And so they got together and decided that they wanted to do something just beyond their yards. They wanted to do something in other places too. They called themselves the Wild Ones. That's where the name came from. And it all started with that group of people. And the speaker that day was Lori Otto. Has anybody heard of her? I had never. Lori knows her. I'd never heard of her either, but she was actually instrumental in getting DDT banned at the national, first in Wisconsin and at the national level. So she's very interesting. If you want to find out more about her, just Google her name, and she's you can see some of her She was inducted to the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame, but she became the guiding star for this organization. Has been very involved. She is an honorary lifetime member board, so you'll see a lot of influence from her. Then I see it here too, so I don't have to keep turning around.
Oh,
yeah. Maybe not. So while this is our mission, you heard the mission that Craig gave earlier. So it promotes environmentally sound landscaping practices to preserve biodiversity through preservation, restoration, and establishment of native plant communities. It's a little different, right? A little different. So if you look at it's not advancing. Okay, sorry. So when you look at our two missions, and now the next slide will show you the comparison, they're very similar. And I think and Laura, Craig, or any of that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like one of the main focuses of the Native Plant Society is preserving the habitats and finding the habitats and protecting those. And what Wild Ones is that too, but really, how do we get people to plant more? It goes back to Doug Tallamy and the home. Everybody heard of his homegrown national park? So it's kind of ties into that. Doug Tallamy is an honorary director, lifetime member of Wild Ones as well. He does those presentations with us and has been involved in a lot as well. So here's the two missions. So very similar, and that's what I hope to talk about today, how we really can work together. And Greg and Laura and I have talked a lot about that, as well as with some other organizations in the area as well. Funny, mine was green and that's yellow. Isn't that funny how the color changes? Okay, so Wild Ones also publishes the values. And now we're talking about people, right? We've been talking about plants and native plants. As far as the values towards the members and respect and personalized support, I have a support line. I sent a message this morning to support line as a chapter and got a message back, an answer back in 2 hours, on a Sunday. So they're just a great organization to support us in the out of the and they're very flexible. And so again, native plants and natural landscapes. Feel free, like Craig said, raise your hand if you have any questions as we go along. So I know you all know this, right? This is a very simplistic slide, but I'm showing you the next few slides so you see are the messaging that Wild Ones has is so similar and really trying to educate folks on the importance of native plants and why they're important. And they are the base of the food chain, right? And so it's just it's really part of the strong education. That's what our chapter will be doing too, as well. There's a lot of education in that regard. And then we also talk about the host plants and the specialists that and the coevolution and the mutualistic relationships between insects and the native plants, and the importance of native plants. We all know, and I tell you, when I'm talking to a group, when you start talking about mutualistic relationships, all you have to do is mention monarchs and everybody nods their head. People understand that, right? They understand that because it's in the news so much that the monarchs are diminishing, and the main reason is they don't have the milkweed. Well, it goes well beyond that, right? Too. It's climate change. It's the habitat destruction. The fact that we don't have milkweed. It's that the development that's happening, the fields that are being raised for other things, and so that's really a great example that brings it home to people to understand that. This next one, I had never heard of this, and this is fascinating. And this is not here, but the yucca plant, and depends on yucca moss. This is a symbiotic type relationship. And if you're interested in reading that, Google it. I have an article, a link for an article I can send it to you from the Smithsonian did a research on the Joshua trees, which is a Yucca brevifolia out in California, and how they're being affected by climate change and how that is affecting the yucca moss. Because the moth actually eats the seeds, but the adult lives very short time. The larva is what lives most of the year and depends on the yucca plant. So it's a very symbiotic type of relationship. Anybody familiar with that? Anybody from that area? Laura is again. No, that's good. I love that. When you have that education, right? But is there anything you want to add to that? It's fascinating. Okay, it's fascinating to me. So, and then of course the biodiversity crisis. And sometimes I start with that when I'm presenting. Is there's a lot in the news about that as well. So we're very aware of that, and really are working to educate people on the importance of that. It's some of it's has to do with climate change, but it's not all climate change. It's like climate change is in the news. You're hearing more about the biodiversity and decline. So you know that many of you in this room can remember is me. Do you remember when you were young? You go on a trip and you're a few miles down the road, and you get that, and your car is covered in insects across the front of the car. The windshield, that's why when you get gas, you always clean your windshield at the same time, because it was covered in smushed insects on your windshield. Or you'd look up at a street light or your lights on your porch, and there'd be insects flying around, moss and things flying around there. You just don't see those anymore. It's really, that really brought it home to me too, when I made that connection, like, oh yeah, I remember what it was like to go on a trip and have to clean the grill of the car, how hard it was to clean the grill when you got home. That's such a signal right there of the loss of insects. And as E.O. Wilson says, insects are the little things that rule the world. If it's not for insects, you don't have birds, you don't have a lot of things up the food web, along the food web. So those are some of the examples that we really talk about a lot. And then habitat loss, as I mentioned before. And there's all the reasons there, and it's not news to you, but it certainly is something that is good to bring up to the people's consciousness. And then turf. We talk a lot about turf reduction, and certainly not eliminating in most cases, but to be able to talk someone into reducing it. And I think, I forget where I saw that it's probably Doug Talany, is if the only time that you walk on your lawn is when you mow it, it's probably time to reduce some of it, right? You're probably not using it so much. Yeah, I had young kids, playing games and football practice and stuff in the yard is one thing, but I love that quote of his. And I'm totally not looking at my notes, so we'll see if I forget anything. So I had to take, as part of my horticulture degree, I had to take a turf management or turf ID class. I put it off to the last semester. I finished it in December. I was like, I don't want to take it. But it turned out it was so educational, and I'm really glad I did, because it brought just the horror of the chemicals. Oh my gosh, the process. So at Central Piedmont, they have a horticulture program and turf management all in the same department. And the turf management is really to train people to get out and have their own landscaping business. So they're teaching, like the tall fescue, you can make a lot of money on that because you got to go back to it many times. There's certain times to water, there's certain times to put herbicide down, there's certain times to put the fertilizers and all that. It just astounded me is how much is done. And so that was a real eye opener, but I did make an A, so but it was good to learn that, and just be aware of really, we all know there's monocultures, nothing benefits from it, right? Nothing in the environment benefits from it. No insects or animals. So again, I'm preaching to the choir here, right? You all know most of this. And so what we say is to really restore ecosystems, restore the diversity in your garden. And again, another quote, it may have been Laurie Otto, but the more biodiversity you have, the healthier and the more you're contributing to, of course, the environment. And by having just lawn and a few ornamentals really is not doing anything. So you want to build a healthy biodiversity in your yard. And then you know the benefits of native plants. So I don't have to tell you that, but we do talk about that as well, because if you're trying to get people to landscape in their yard with native plants, you certainly want to give them some of the benefits as well. And I'm sure you all have done this, right? So as I said, Doug Talmy is honorary director, and I put this in here just to show you that we do support his homegrown national park, and try to encourage folks to just go on and put their gardens, their native plant gardens there as well. So any questions before I go on? You totally bored because you know all this stuff, right? Okay. So let's talk now about the organization and what benefit it adds to the general public and things that you could take advantage of, as how I found it. So I came to Wild Ones by the webinars, right? That's what really hooked me into the value of the organization. And there are some of these other things I'm going to talk about that has brought other people to the organization. So this one, and this brought the person that's the treasurer on the board for the local chapter, this is what brought him to Wild Ones. He lived in Chicago and was wanted to put a garden in for his kids, so these kids could see butterflies. And so he happened to find these and was so impressed that there were free garden designs that he could use because he wasn't a designer. And he joined Wild Ones right away because of that, to support them. And then he moved to Charlotte, actually TK, and so now he's part of our chapter and is our treasurer. But this is what brought him. So really the premise is that it can be beautiful. It doesn't have to be wild. It's better if, it's great if it is, but it can be more manicured in how you do that with straight lines. And so there's ways to do it where it looks more like the normal ornamental yards. And that's part of it. And also it allows people that don't have the money to hire someone to design, but wants to start doing native plants. It gives some examples of what you can do and how you can place them in your yard. And I'm going to show you one of them. And I encourage you to go look at those online. And I'll show you the picture of the website in a bit to show you how to get to those. But really promoting wildlife, of course. So really great resource. And then you can do it in incremental plants. Remember, I talked about meeting people where they are. If someone's got 100% non-native in their yard, you're not going to get them to tear everything out, right? How can you get started with it? That's really what I want to help people with too, is how do you get somebody to understand the importance of this? But this allows you to start small and have a list of the plants as well as the design. So this is just some examples. There's 9 available by different ecoregions, and these are the ones that are available now. It's Boston, Chattanooga, Chicago, Denver, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, St. Louis, Tallahassee, and Toledo. Now, Chattanooga is the closest to us in ecoregion. That's not one of these, but that's the one I would encourage you to look at first. It's the most, I think they're a level off from us in the climate zone. And so these are coming in 2023. And one of them is Greensboro, North Carolina. Okay. And anybody know Preston Montague? Preston's the one that's designed, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but he's the one that designed the Greensboro one. And when they release it, they'll also have a video of him talking about the design. And he's specifically saying that he put some plants in there that would cover the Charlotte area. So real excited for this. I don't have a date yet for it. I know they're pretty much close to finishing them. So there's gonna be a launch at some point this year, and we'll send it out to our members on our mailing list to give you an idea of when we hear that it's coming, but very exciting. Yes.
I have a question. If you went back a couple slides to where you had the little strip by the street with the, yes, that one.
Oh, this one.
That one.
Yeah.
In my area, I'm in Mid Hill, the deer would destroy that in a day. So it looks really pretty and it's very good concept and theory. And I know that looks very suburban. Maybe they don't have deer walking up to their
Right.
house. But around here, the habitat is being destroyed. I mean, you can just, on your way
I
to
know.
drive, you could see all the fields and all the subdivisions going in. And even plants that are deer resistant, the deer are eating because
Yeah.
they're so hungry. So that looks really good. But, you know, other than putting fence all the way up around the
Yeah.
plantings, you're kind of not gonna have a whole lot of success.
Yeah, I have a few things that I've sprayed. They like my own flowers. Yeah. So I do spray a deer deterrent myself, but you know why we're seeing more deer, right?
Mhm.
It's because of development.
Right.
I mean, there's a place, I live in Old Providence neighborhood, and there's a huge place near us on Providence Road that was gorgeous. And I have a friend that works at a large garden adjacent to it and is hired there as one of the full-time gardeners. And when they gosh, how big, I don't know. I'm not good at estimating acreage, but a huge area. They just pulled up all the forest. And he said that they had so many animals coming into their garden because they had lost their habitat. It's frightening. I go another way. I can't even look at it. But yeah, I agree with you. It's hard. And I don't know if anybody else
Until you
has.
stop stuff like that, and you talk about climate change all you want, but when they're mowing down the trees, don't talk to me about climate change.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's non-native, but there are some herbs, some plants that are extremely strong smelling that will deter them from coming to the area because they are extremely sensitive to predators. Although there are limited ones in here limited ones in the area other than people. Strong smells have a tendency to run them off simply because they can't smell the predator. And so they have a tendency to walk around, go another direction, whereas that might not help your neighbor out. It might help you.
It's me, not my neighbor, it's me. I've got 6 acres.
Yeah, but if you're running them to your neighbor's house, it's not going to help them out, but it might help you out. But lots of them are non-native. Some of your stronger smelling herbs and whatnot will push them in a different area or away from maybe some fried stuff.
Should I repeat that conversation? Like paraphrase that?
Oh, yeah, if you can.
Yeah, sure. So those of you on Zoom, so the comment was that the slide you're seeing now by the roadside would just be in her neighborhood, it would just be eaten by deer, which we all have experienced deer eating some of our natives in our yard, right? And then there was another comment about the ability to use certain herbs, very strong smelling plants that could deter them from smelling the cone flowers and such and going someplace else. So I've tried that, yes, and it's worked in some places and others not. So if you have a list of those, I'd be happy to take that list.
Well, and I think it's a good thing to point out, to talk about why it's such a good thing to advocate for gardening with native plants in your neighborhood. Because if you can, I think it's another thing that Doug Tallamy talks about is overwhelming the animals with food. And so if you have multiple homes that have large native gardens and a deer comes through and they browse a couple areas, it doesn't make as much of an impact as if they just took down all, one garden in one fell swoop. And so I think it's really important to kind of spread that message and get that out so that it doesn't make as much of an impact when they do come through, because it is.
They eat non-natives too, so yes.
Yeah, that's a deer problem, which we're all having. But there are a number of things you can do. Not everything's going to work every time, but I heard a good program on the podcast, A Way to Garden with Margaret Roach, a couple months back. And of course, I've been doing this for a long time, so I thought, what am I going to learn from this guy that I don't already know, right? But I did, and so you have to use a number of different methods, and at different times of the year, it changes, the pressure changes. So anyway, I'm sure they have a transcript of it. It's worth listening to. It's like a half an hour. And they probably have references, but don't give up.
That's right, that's right. And so it was commented that A Way to Garden, is that the name of it? A Way to Garden webinar that should be able to search it if you find it, Craig.
Yeah, I'm typing it in. I actually listen to it each week. So yeah, I think I've heard that same presentation. Yeah.
Sounds like it. See, I learn something every day. It's great. I'll have to look for that one. I don't know that one, but A Way to Garden, and we will send that out. By the way, if you sign up on the mailing list for Wild Ones, I will send out some of the things I talked about today, and we'll send that out too. So I'd like to do a follow-up for those that are more interested in Wild Ones. Thanks for the comments. Something we all can use. And the other comment she made was Lisa made was that different things work different times of year. So you have to try different things and not give up. But thanks for your question. Led to a good discussion. So anyway, so these are the coming, and very excited about those. We also have a grant that money that we provide through the national organization, and it's really it's named after Laurie Otto, and it's for education, and it's for children's gardens. So really trying to build new good garden stewards and at a young age. And I worked at Winghaven I was at Winghaven all last year, managing the native plant garden there. And when I first started, I'm like, yeah, I'm not into teaching the kids or anything. I just wanted that I can manage the garden. Well, I found out I love teaching the kids. I ran the garden days at their camps and talk because they were so eager. And I would be so surprised at how young age they know what photosynthesis is, or they know plants and they know the importance. It was astounding. It really changed my view to think, starting with the kids. And that's one thing I hope our local chapter can do, is help start some school gardens, work with education. But the national organization believes too that educating children is very important. And so it's awarded up to $500 per award. And it's to schools and young youth engagement organizations. And it can be for plants or seeds, whatever they need to get the garden started. And there's an application, of course, that we fill out. And last year they gave away $9,500 to 24 different organizations in 19 states. So it really is, that's when you join the organization, part of the money goes to that. And there are fundraisers they do, but it's really, to me, was so impressive that they put some of their money into the youth, support the youth. Yeah, and then the educational webinars. Like I said, we've had some of these names you recognize, the people that have done webinars in the past. They haven't done it in a while. I should know this, but I don't know if it's a certain time of year. But there are some on YouTube, and the ones last year were some of the ones last year are available on YouTube. Also on the website, you can get to some of the webinars on the website too. The recording, sorry, of the webinars. And then there's a quarterly journal. To members, they get access to the most recent one. Anyone else can get access to the previous ones. So you can go on to wildones.org today and go to journals, and you can get access to all the journals without joining, except for the most recent one. And the current one is 57 pages.
Oh, wow.
So it's substantial. And they've got articles by well-known folks, and they're excellent journals. So personally, I like holding paper sometimes. So I wish something that I want to reference. So I wish it was printed, but it's only electronic to, thinking of the environment, being sustainable and such. But these are some of the topics that you'll see in their opinions. Of course, there's a lot of ads. Of course, that's what funds it. But and then there's an annual photo contest. I entered a picture of mine this year, but that's what they do. All the pictures in the slides that they provide us, and most of these are their slides. I've changed some things and added some, but they use them. Even the ones that don't win, they use them through the year as in materials and publications. So they don't, they use members. This was Best in Show 2 years ago. Pretty nice. Have to have a special camera to get that close, right? They call them glamour shots of native plants and pollinators. Who remembers glamour shots? I never did it, but I remember. I told you about the chapters. There's also a list there of plant nurseries that sell native plants. And I noticed Dearness wasn't on there. I submitted Dearness, and there's others that aren't on there. I'm not sure. I think yours is on there, isn't it, Lisa? I don't know. If not, I'll submit yours too. But anybody can submit it, and they will research it and decide but that's something I hope our local chapter can do as well, is really dig into that and partner with some of the nurseries. Because one reason, and this is what I kept hearing in school, is one reason people don't landscape with native plants is because they can't get them. They're so hard to get, the things you need to replace those ornamentals that landscapers use. And I've talked to a couple of companies, they're too hard to get. I just go to my standard supplier. So how do we kind of fix that too? And and part of it is just finding those suppliers. And I talked to a landscaper Friday that gets them from here, a garden center in Harrisburg that I never heard of. And I'm curious to see if they even have any native plants, so that's the problem that your standard landscapers have in trying to get more people using native plants. Even if they wanted to, it's hard for them to find them at volumes that they need. So chapter programs. So again, we are the Charlotte Piedmont, to be distinguished from the Southern Piedmont chapter here. Wild Ones likes the titles to have some regional geographical significance. So we picked Charlotte Piedmont as our chapter name. And so we, all chapters hold meetings, mostly monthly and mostly around education, as I said before. And we will be doing that too. Our first meeting was November 5th. We held it at Winghaven, and Paula Gross was our first speaker. And yeah, it was awesome. And meant a lot to me because she's the one that started me on this path with native plants and as my instructor at Central Piedmont. So I was really honored that she did that for us, and had 30 people, which was great turnout for our first meeting. So I'll tell you more about some of the things we're doing as we go along. But that's one thing we'll be doing is education, as you do in your meetings. And community. One of the first events we out the public was in September. We were invited to, because our vice president is a master gardener in Union County. Yeah, it's me. That is me. We are good eyes. We were at we exhibited our first activity. We exhibited at the Union County Heritage Festival. Got 35 names on our mailing list from that. A lot of interest in Union County. We were really surprised, and I gave 2 short talks. They have little garden talks in one of the areas that they asked me to give 2 talks. I did that, and it was a lot of fun. And we will be at the same hawk festival to exhibit on April 15th. We also been invited to do the Fairy House Festival at Lotta Nature Preserve. And so we'll have a booth there as well. We have to have a craft. So I got a craft from our education coordinator at Winghaven. We've got some little air dry clay, and I'm gonna collect all sorts of natural materials from the ground and acorns and things, and they'll get to stick them into a little flat of clay and make a little fairy garden. So we'll have a lot of fun for that. Yes.
We have a question online asking, do you provide information on the removal of exotic non-natives on your website or? in
They
person?
do. There is information on there. And in fact, there's, I'm not sure if some of those brochures, but yes, there is information on there. And I'll tell you, when I get to the website, pay attention to that, because I'll show you where to get to those native plant designs. And it has more resources there that you have to kind of dig into to see. So, yeah. And then garden tours. I know you do this. I love the garden tours. I went on with the Native Plant Society last year. It was like it just was so good to see someone just doing their best in gardening and just loving it, and not some pristine yard that's on all these other garden tours, right? Just to have a loved garden that they were willing to share. I just loved it. And so we're going to do that as well. A lot of the chapters around the country do that. Our Christina Culp is our vice president, and she's going to open up her wooded native garden for us in, I forget the month, but later this year. So how would you get involved, and how do you connect with Wild Ones? So this is, when you go to wildones.org, this is the website. And I'm going to point out a few things, and I'm sorry, those of you online cannot see my laser, but just follow along and I'll point out what I'm doing. So the get involved is really, to join. And then the chapters is where you can see other chapters. That map that I put up, that's where you'd see that. And you can connect with us there. We have a website that will be, it's already active, but it's nothing on it yet. So we'll be working on that this week. But you can link to other chapters' websites from that map as well that I showed you. Events. So this will be national events. And we're looking at putting local events on there as well. So you'll be able to see those. Seeds for Education. That's the grant I told you about. And if you're involved in any youth organization, certainly look at it. Look at the application, and when they open it back up, it'd be great to have somebody local involved. This is the native garden plans. And when you open that up, you'll see the ones available. And just, if you keep going down, you'll see when you pick Chattanooga. And if you have time, I'm happy to go to the website and show you some of these things, but you'll be able to see the designs. You'll be able to download it, to print it for yourself. You'll see the list of plants and description of every plant that designer. You'll read about the designer, whoever designed that particular plan. And also when you go to that page, look across the top. The banner across the top completely changes on that page. And there's other resources. And I brought 2 brochures. And I got one for you and one for Laura. 2 brochures that have been recently published, but a lot of the information in here is on that native plant design. So this one is climate resilient landscapes, and this one is native garden design. Sorry. So a lot of the information that's in these brochures are also on that webpage. And then the journals I talked about, you could get the journals, the prior journals, be right there. Photo contest, butterfly gardens, you can look at that, some more information about gardening. And then if you scroll down, you can find more information about webinars and such. And join. Wild Ones is on all the social media that Craig mentioned for the Native Plant Society. We're also on LinkedIn. And so you can find it on LinkedIn as well. And I see something happened with my G there. Whoops. And they're on Facebook. This is what, I know sometimes it's hard to find something on Facebook. This is what it's called, Wild Ones Native Plants Groups. And this is what it looks like. So if you want to find it, anybody can join this Facebook page. So I recommend, that would be a good place to start too, and see what information that the group posts out. So our chapter, how do you get in touch with our chapter? Like I said, there's 2 sheets over there on the table that if you want to join our mailing list without joining. So we have over 100 people on our mailing list, and only a subset of that are members of the organization. We will have a few events that are members only, or we'll start with members, and if we have enough room, we'll open it up to others because of space or such. But right now, everything we're doing is open to the public. We're trying to get the word out about us and what we're doing. That's our email, Wild Ones Charlotte Piedmont @gmail. And our website, which is coming, will be charlottepiedmont.wildones.org. And I will, like I said, if you sign up on our list, I will send it out to you. You have it as well.
We have another question online.
Sure.
Someone's asking, do you do any work regarding local legislation? She mentioned a member from a Western North Carolina chapter got legislation changed in their city to only use natives in city planning. If there's anything like that that you're working on.
We have talked about that at the board level. And we have one board member, he actually lives in South Carolina, that's very interested in that. I think where we would start is I hear a lot of people having problems with HOAs, you know, and how do you work with an HOA? And I think that's probably where in that kind of realm, we probably start with that. But yes, we have talked about doing that. We need more involvement, of course, for us to do things like that. And if looking for members, we're going to send out probably 1st of February, a member interest survey to find out the people that are on our mailing list, not just the members, but on the mailing list of what their interest is and how others can help us with things like that. I will say the Wild Ones organization has a team of wild lawyers, they call them. And they're wild lawyers and they're volunteers for the organization. So we have a long list of 15 or 20 documents put together by the attorneys, that wild attorneys, that's what they call them, and that give chapters guidance on all sorts of things in the government, financial, all that. And they're there if we get into something like that. We have at our disposal that same support line that I told you about, the quick answer, that we can send them any questions we have. So we do have support for that at some level, and we do hope to get into that more. And we'll learn from other chapters as well. There is a group of an organization in the southeast of chapters in the area that have started a Zoom for chapter officers. So we'll have benefit of that to learn from other chapters as well. One of the largest chapters in the country is in Chattanooga. They go to Cullowhee. I met, in fact, anybody at Cullowhee this last year? Anybody see me on stage? Well, yeah, in the back. Wild Ones was given the what's the name of the award? Oh yeah. They give that annual award, Cullowhee. I forget now the name of it, but they gave it to Wild Ones as an organization rather than giving it to a person. I was sitting in the audience and they were describing who was going to get it, and I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds like Wild Ones. Oh, it can't be that. That sounds like Wild Ones, and sure enough, it was. And there were 3 of us in the audience, and the 3 of us went down to accept the award. So it was quite an honor that Wild Ones was recognized by the Cullowhee Native Plant Conference. So we have a Facebook page that is active. We don't post a whole lot yet, but there are some things on there. And one thing you'll find on there is and I have some of these if anybody's interested. Remember I talked about how we're working with other organizations so much and trying to really create networks of organizations that can support each other. So we've been planning a Gardening in the Piedmont series of classes, and 5 classes. And it really started because master gardeners are seeing so many questions from people that just moved to the area. And then, they're here in the summer where we've got the high 90s, like, how do you garden in this kind of weather? And how do you garden with all these change of seasons? And so they get a lot of questions on that. So this is really geared for people new to the area. Doesn't have to be, but if you know someone that they would benefit from this, new neighbors that have moved in, pick up one of these. And it's also listed on one of the recent posts on our Facebook page. It starts February 27th. And some of the speakers are Cindy Proctor, who is a professor instructor at Central Piedmont. Myself and Debbie Dillon, who is the horticulture extension agent in Union County. Don Hyde, yes. I had it before I got here. I knew I was going to say that. I have it right. He is speaking on vegetable gardening, which is his specialty. And then Carol Bowie Jackson is speaking on wildlife gardening. And then Lisa is joining us for the last one, as we have a panel of most of the instructors will come back for a panel for the last class. So we're very excited about that. And it's so that the sponsors, the people that are doing it, is Wild Ones. But it really was initiated by the Union County Master Gardeners. And then the state extension through Debbie Dillon, who is the agent there. And then the North Carolina Wildlife Federation. And that they're handling a lot of forests as well. And so it's a coordination of all those organizations giving this. We hope you'll be able to repeat it. We have a really good turnout. It just was posted this past week on the National Wildlife Federation website. So again, if you know someone that would be interested, or if you're interested, let us know. So these are the people that are on our board. Christina Culp, she's the master gardener I was talking about in Union County. Ben Bartelt is the one that moved from Chicago, that came to Wild Ones through the love of the native garden designs. And then Michelle Izzle is she is a retired faculty from UNC Charlotte. That was one of my volunteers working with me at the garden, at the native plant garden at Winghaven, and is in the middle of taking the classes at UNC Charlotte. So it's a great team, and we're looking for others that want to join us and help us in some of the committees and programming, planning, and things like that. So love it if you're interested. So if you want to become a member, there is a couple ways. I have these little cards with a code that you can take with you, scan it on your phone, and it takes you right to the page. There's also these brochures right here that if you like paper, if you'd rather mail it, I found some people that rather mail it in. This is membership brochures, and I will tell you. So we have different levels as well, and so the student one is how I got started. The household is, I think it's 40 at the lowest level. Oh, let's see, I got it right here in my hand. Yes, 40 at the lowest level. And they have three levels on each of these. It's called Wild, Wilder, and Wildest. And it's how much you want to donate to the organization. So if you're an individual and want the household, but you want to contribute as well, that goes up to $100 or more. But 40 is the basic. So when you join the national organization, you get to choose which chapter you're affiliated with. And because of where you live, they'll prompt you with something. And so Charlotte Piedmont is what you'd want to choose to be affiliated with us. And I also have my business cards that have the email for the organization as well as my phone number. So if you want to get in touch with me at some point, some way to take one of these. I will say too, I have a brochure on native. If you like paper stuff, I have a brochure on native, just what native plants are it's used for people that you're trying to educate. There's one on rain gardens as well. We promote rain gardens quite a bit, and then there's one on wild for monarchs. So we partner with Monarch Joint Venture. It's called. If you've heard of that one, that's one of our partners. The other partner is 2/3 for the birds. You ever heard of that one? Have I heard of it? Check it out. It's 2/3, like the 2/3 fraction of course, it's 2/3 written out on the website, but 2/3 for the birds. Wanting plant kind of like don't tell me like should have at least 70% native plants. This is like plant 2/3 for the birds, and so yeah, it's a great organization too. So. And that is Lisa. She's the one that supports all the chapters. She's great to work with. So I feel like we're stronger together. We're stronger as a team. We're stronger working, together. And Craig and I've been talking today about some things that we could do. Let us join some of the things that you do in restorations and pulling invasives, and we have lots of people that would love to do that. And we appreciate that we're going to be doing co-marketing of our events. So you'll find out what Winghaven is. Wild Ones. We still got Winghaven on my mind. And we'll certainly publish your organizations too. And I think it's a great team. And Donna Bowles, I saw walk in too. We've talked about doing some things together too at the National Wildlife Federation, and as well as Hawk. So I found this quote recently. Has anybody read this book?
Yeah.
Braiding Sweetgrass. Have you? I haven't read it yet. I should read it, right? Okay. I should read it. I found this quote though that I loved. So simple, right? to love a place is not enough. We must find ways to heal it. And that kind of says what we're all about, right? Is healing our environment and really planning more for the birds and insects. If you don't have insects, you don't have birds. If you don't have caterpillars, you don't have birds, right? Here's my personal information. Feel free to contact me with either one. It's my personal email. And I used to live in Hilton Head. That's HHI. Everybody wants to know what HHI. Hilton Head Island. So thank you. I'm so honored. Again, I say I'm so honored to be here and to have time to talk about this organization. And I've taken an hour, so I'm open for any questions that you may have. Is there any more questions online?
Not yet.
I was just curious if all the organization, are there paid staff members then?
Yes,
at the
there are.
national level?
Yes,
Okay.
there are.
Do
There's,
you mind repeating the question?
oh, yes, thank you. for that. The question is if we have paid staff members at the local level. And Lisa is a paid staff member. The technical person that answered my question this morning is paid. Yes, there are, I don't know, 12 maybe, or 12 paid staff, definitely. Not in chapter levels.
Right.
All the chapter level is volunteer.
I've been told about all these different organizations that seem very similar. What is the one thing, the wild ones that sets them apart from the master gardeners or native plants or the from the other organizations?
So good question. What sets Wild Ones apart from all the other organizations like Master Gardeners, Native Plant Society? What sets this organization off? And I think it's what really drew me to it is the push towards getting native plants into the suburban landscapes, into the commercial landscapes, to get more native plants there, to get people to understand the importance of having that native plant garden. If start small, and I think that's what this is the way it helps people to start small and understand it. And what the organization says that they believe they are the only national organization, nonprofit, that is focused on that natural landscapes, native plant landscapes. So I think, well, the Xerces, no, they're really focused on the animals, but to focus on the animals, the invertebrates, you have to get the plants, right? So some of them come about in a different way, but as far as a national organization, I don't know of any other. That's what they say, but they're the only that is, and they just want to continue with that. That's the mission, is to continue being that source, that to be that expert in the field that people can turn to learn more and to create their own gardens. Good question.
Do you have a plan to have any plant sales?
So the question is, we plan to have plant sales, and many chapters do that. Yeah, I didn't have that on there, but many chapters do that. And some of the pictures that they have in some of the PowerPoints and things. And they even have instructions for us, for chapters, on how to, how to host one, and samples of what other groups have done, and all these best practices on that for us. We haven't yet scheduled one, but it's something we would like to do within the year, or even seed swaps like you do, maybe join you so that we do a bigger swap or something. Yes, we would do both of those at some point. Yeah, good question.
My name is Roland, and I'm working with my local elementary school to have a native garden in front, but they also have a lot of land that's just mowed constantly.
Yeah.
And I want to really I wonder if you have any advice for turning like a half acre or more and getting the community kind of involved in that process, and what your advice might be.
Well, you've done a great job starting that at the school. What school are you at?
Rivergate Elementary.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I personally don't have experience with that, but my thought was, do you go at the district level, or do you start at the school level and to try to do that? And this is a little bit off topic, but while I'm thinking about it, because otherwise it'll slip from my little brain, is Roland, what you have reminded me of is something that I was learned recently that I think you'll all be interested in. The city of Charlotte, their landscape maintenance team, has an initiative, and you can even read about it, go to their website. It's the landscape group. They have an initiative where they're planting native plant gardens around the city. I went and volunteered with the National Wildlife Federation few months ago, planning, have you ever been to the place on, what's the road it's on? Tuckasegee, yes, thank you. If you've been to their place on Tuckasegee, on the upper end of that property, there's a road that goes by. They took that entire space. I'm not good at measurements, but the entire space is probably 12 feet deep and all, I don't know, and completely regenerated the soil, took out the sod, and we planted native plants on the whole thing. And they're doing it in certain land, like islands in the roads. And I was so impressed. And they feel so strong about it. And they're also working on, and this could apply to schools as well. They are looking on a butterfly initiative. So Charlotte is the only large city in North Carolina that's not considered a butterfly city. You might know that. I didn't know that. So they have a program they put together that they're going to take to the city council. And they're going to present that to get it approved to city council to do what needs to be done to make this a butterfly city. And that's part of why they're starting this push towards the native plant gardens and such.
Are they doing that in addition to Bee City or?
Oh, it's Bee City. You're right. I'm sorry. It's Bee City. Butterflies on. Yes.
So Charlotte is not a big. The other thing.
Charlotte's not a big city.
The National Wildlife Federation also has a program for schools and creating wildlife habitat on the school property and something like a wildlife garden. Part of that, so that's another.
Yeah, and Roland, I'm going to check on our on the chapter leaders webpage and see what resources are there for that, because I have not explored that.
I was approached to help do a garden by the elementary school, but there was an issue that the children would be stung by bees. Did you think about that?
Yeah, so the question is that she was contacted about a school to do a pollinator garden, but the concern was that the kids would be stung by the bees. And that's an education thing. You have to educate them that it's just not. Yeah.
And
It was.
because they had to walk, the garden was going to be on each side of the walkway, so I think it's supposed to walk.
Yeah.
Because children are not going to stay on the walkway.
Yeah, so the concern was that,
Yeah.
the concern in the school was that the garden was on either side of the walkway and the children were going to walk through it and they might be, children that had allergies. And being at Winghaven, kids got stung. And there are some kids that we had one child that, that had a reaction, but and we had honeybees at Winghaven. So it's just that it was really the honeybees that stung them. It wasn't other bees, it was the honeybees. And just because they sat on them or pressed down where they were or something. So it's an education. And I think, let me see if I have any resources on that too. And what's your name?
Oh, I'm Kathy Russian.
Kathy, did you sign? Are you going to sign the list?
Yes, I'm
Okay, good. Last name again?
Russian.
Russian.
We got a question there in the back.
Back to the plant sale. I went to Chattanooga a couple years ago.
Yeah.
They have a great sale there at the Pavilion downtown. And the number of people selling plants. I checked beforehand, I pre-ordered, and I paid for my gas up there and back, saving and shipping.
Wow.
With all the good plants that I was
Yeah.
Wild ones, Chattanooga, summer, spring.
Yeah, that is a huge chapter. And they've been,
Yes, yes.
yeah, they're a huge chapter and been around for a long time. So a lot of resources. That's great. So the comment was that the gentleman here went to Chattanooga to the Wildflowers chapter plant sale there and was saved shipping costs and got some wonderful plants. So it is a big chapter. Any other questions? Well, I'm gonna leave the brochures up here afterwards.
How would one go about getting extra of those? And the reason I ask, yes, and the reason I ask is because master gardeners set up at different events and farmers markets throughout the area. And we pass out literature and stuff all the time. So is there a way to get some that we can pass out to our folks down in Union County? And
Yeah, the chapter can buy them. So what I can do is let's get together.
okay, I mean, I have no problem that there's an electronic version I can hit print, but
I'm not sure, but I'll check. If
Okay.
So I can get that to you.
okay,
So tell me your name again.
Sonia.
Is there any other master gardeners here?
Oh, yeah, there's a group of them. Yeah, we're out in Union, so.
Oh, you're in Union.
Yeah.
Are y'all that for
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, you'd love to work with the master gardeners in other counties. We were just doing so much in Union because Christina was she was already a member of Wild Ones, and we just hooked up right away. And they are, I need to tell you too, we got invited after that Heritage Festival, we got invited to the Marvin trick or treat. And we did a little cruise at the Marvin trick or treat and got 10 or 15 names there, people interested. And so it's been a lot of fun. Yes.
What were you dressed up?
I was at a wedding in Florida. So Ben did it. I don't know if Ben dressed up. I probably should, but he took his kids there, so his kids will enjoy it too. I would be a witch if it was. I have that. But yeah, if there's anything Wild Ones can do at the master gardener level, please get in contact with me. We'd love to support you in any way we can and work with you. I just haven't had a contact in the other counties. I did the county Catawba. I did meet a lady at the UNCC plant sale in Catawba. Does anybody here in the Catawba? Master gardeners. She took the information, was going to let them know about our first meeting. I didn't have anyone that came, but I tell you, out of the 30, I had 12 people come that heard about our meeting, our first meeting, through the Charlotte Garden Club. Is anybody a member of the Charlotte Garden Club? They have great speakers, and I tell you, I recommend it. They've really moving towards native plants more and such, and 12 people from that organization came to our meeting, so it was very impressive. I've been a member there for 2 or 3 years. And Roland, did you sign over here too?
Yeah.
Okay, so I made a note. Okay, so I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
And to Kathy and Sonia.
And speaking of, I know we mentioned the native plant sales that are available. Just a reminder, we are going to have this summer in June our picnic event, our annual picnic at Pfeiffer University. It'll be statewide, or all the state chapters will be there. We'll be doing a large plant sale there as well.
I'm gonna send you me one of the mountains, not the local satellite frames of Pfeiffer.
It's in Meisenheimer. So yeah.
Where are your meetings located at? Well, good question. So Winghaven, when I worked there, the classes are at the Marvin Town Hall. They're giving us the space for free. So, but really what I want to do, so we cover Mecklenburg, but the counties around Mecklenburg as well. So we're regional, not just, obviously we're in Union County. So we're doing most of it south. I'd love to what I'd like to do is hold meetings, especially the first year or so, try to hold meetings further away. Further, around the organization, around the region. You get tongue tied now, around the region to spread it and so it's easier, and not even just once a month. I mean, we're having a meeting one place. I'm fine to do another meeting someplace else too. So if you have any connections or anybody that would like us to coordinate and schedule a meeting, absolutely. But we're looking at doing one meeting here. Lauren and I are going to talk about after that, after this meeting. So we're moving around right now. And we don't have like this group has meeting, was it the second Sunday of every month? We're not going to get to that for a while. We're deciding we're going to just be flexible right now and do plans when we have the ability to do that. And like I said, move things around. We may get to that next year, but let's see kind of what works this year. We want to do something different right now, Saturday was our, our first meeting was on a Saturday. Thank you for the questions.